Hello everyone! Welcome to Untold Story, the channel where we discover the strangest and most often forgotten events in history. Today we travel to the 18th century to talk about one of the most surreal episodes in military history, the Battle of Karansebes, a confrontation that took place in 1788 in what is now Romania, and that has gone down in history as one of the biggest blunders in the history of war. In this battle, the Austrian army faced itself. What began as a simple mistake ended in a tragedy that led to the deaths of hundreds of soldiers and great chaos within the imperial forces. This battle is one of those events that, despite its anecdotal importance, does not appear in many history books due to its ridiculous nature and the embarrassment it caused the Habsburg Empire. To understand the context of this battle, we must first immerse ourselves in the historical and political scenario of the late 18th century. Europe was in constant change and conflict, and the great empires were fighting for control of strategic territories on the continent. The Austro-Turkish War, which took place between 1787 and 1791, was part of this constant struggle for dominance between the Habsburgs and the Ottoman Empire. Conflict was triggered after the Ottoman Empire attempted to regain control of areas it had lost in previous wars against the Habsburgs. The situation was taken advantage of by Emperor Joseph II, who decided to launch a military campaign to expel the Ottomans from the Balkans and expand Austrian influence in the region. Austria was allied with Russia, which also saw the Ottomans as an obstacle to its ambitions in southeastern Europe. With this motivation in mind, the Austrian army mobilized to launch an offensive against the Ottoman Empire in 1788. The Austrian forces, under the command of Emperor Joseph II and other high-ranking commanders, were composed of a smorgasbord of soldiers from different corners of the empire, including Austrians, Hungarians, Serbs, Croats, and Italians. This multicultural factor of the army, with different languages and customs, would be a key ingredient in the disaster that was to come. On September 19, 1788, the Austrian army was advancing through the region of Banat, in what is now Romania, near the city of Karansebes. Troops were tasked with preparing the ground to face the Ottoman forces, who were advancing from the south. That night, the Austrian army decided to camp near the Timis River to rest before continuing their march. As in most military campaigns of the time, the supply of food and supplies was always a problem, and soldiers often had to scavenge for their own provisions. It was here that the chaos began. According to accounts of the time, a group of Austrian hussars got ahead of the rest of the army and crossed the river to scout the terrain for signs of the Ottoman forces. Instead of finding the enemy, the hussars found something far more tempting: a group of Romanian peasants selling liquor. Tired from the march and eager for a respite, the hussars bought the liquor and began to drink. The situation quickly spiraled out of control. Other soldiers, hearing that the hussars were enjoying the drink, also wanted to participate. A group of infantry arrived at the scene and demanded their share of the liquor. However, the hussars who had paid for the drink refused to share it. This triggered a dispute between the two groups. The argument escalated, and before long a fight broke out. One of the soldiers, in a moment of panic or fury, fired a shot into the air. That shot was the trigger for total chaos. In the midst of the darkness of the night and the confusion caused by the liquor, some soldiers began to shout that the Ottomans were attacking. Hearing the gunfire and screams, the troops who were camped on the other side of the river panicked, believing that the enemy was really close. Fear and confusion spread among the soldiers, many of whom could not understand each other due to linguistic differences within the army. To make the situation worse, some officers began shouting, "The Turks! The Turks are here!" further increasing panic among the troops. The Austrian army, disorganized and divided, began firing at each other in the dark, believing that they were under attack by the Ottoman forces. The different units, unable to coordinate, fell into a state of absolute chaos. The disaster continued when a part of the army tried to retreat across the river. The Austrian artillery, seeing their own soldiers moving in the darkness, mistook them for the enemy and opened fire on them. The gunfire only increased the chaos, and many soldiers, terrified, abandoned their positions and fled in different directions. Some soldiers fell into the river and drowned, while others were trampled in the stampede of troops fleeing in all directions. The next morning, the result was clear. Hundreds of Austrian soldiers lay dead or wounded, many of them victims of their own army. The exact number of casualties varies depending on sources, but it is estimated that between 150 and 400 soldiers died as a result of this absurd engagement. Most surprising of all, there was not a single Ottoman soldier in the vicinity. The Austrian army had faced itself in one of the strangest and most ridiculous battles in military history. The impact of this battle was significant for the Austrian campaign. The next day, when the Ottomans finally reached the area, they found a demoralized and disorganized Austrian army, unable to offer effective resistance. The Ottomans seized the opportunity to advance, and the Austrian campaign against them suffered a major setback. This event demonstrates how chaos can ensue when a combination of incompetence, panic, and miscommunication takes over an army. The story became a source of embarrassment to the Habsburg Empire, and although attempts were made to keep the incident quiet, it soon spread throughout Europe, becoming a tragic anecdote about the dangers of poor military organization. Austria's allies and enemies saw the incident as a sign of the Austrian army's internal weaknesses, and Emperor Joseph II was deeply humiliated. As strange as this event may seem, it remains a powerful reminder of what can happen when improvisation and negligence dominate a military operation. Although this battle did not change the course of the war in its entirety, it certainly remained etched in the collective memory as one of the most shameful moments in the military history of the Habsburg Empire. The Battle of Karansebes is a perfect example of how collective panic can lead to disastrous outcomes, even when no real enemy is present. Poorly made decisions in the heat of the moment, a lack of clear communication, and the inability of leaders to remain calm and in control can turn a tense situation into complete chaos. In this case, the Austrian army's most dangerous enemy was its own fear and disorganization. In short, this battle is one of the strangest anecdotes in military history, an episode in which the Austrian army faced itself in a battle that should never have happened. Thank you for joining us for this review of the Battle of Karansebes. If you liked the episode, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell for more fascinating stories in Untold Story. See you in the next one.